What is up, everybody? This is JP representing jpfitnesspro.com. Today's episode of the Exercise Science Podcast is going to be another community podcast. I posted on my social media platforms asking you guys to ask me any questions regarding strength, hypertrophy, which is gaining muscle, or weight management, and you guys definitely didn't disappoint. Last episode of the Exercise Science Podcast from my community podcast was pretty long. This one's going to be a little bit shorter since I didn't get as many questions, but you guys asked me some pretty good questions. So instead of doing a bunch of questions for a long podcast, I'm going to do a little bit shorter of a podcast, but I'm going to go a little bit more thorough on the questions asked. The first question comes from Joshua. He asked me last time, but I couldn't get to it on my last episode, so I'm going to get to it this time. It's a really good question. And his question was, what is the ideal ratio of pull-ups to push-ups? And then he also asked, should I be doing twice as many push-ups as pull-ups? The first thing I want to mention is that he asked if he should be doing twice as many push-ups as pull-ups. I would never base a set amount of repetitions, like the amount of repetitions you do in a set, based off of ratios. I wouldn't do that. Because, again, you shouldn't be saying, oh, I'm going to do this many push-ups because I could do this many pull-ups. Or I'm not going to stop working out until I hit this many amount of pull-ups because I need to do half as many push-ups. The reason why is because you're going to start, you're basing how close you get to failure and rep ranges and RPEs, and you're now basing it off of another exercise when, again, one person might be better at something and than something else. So let me give you an example. Let's just say you can do let's just say you're really good at push-ups and you can do 100 push-ups in a set. Or let's just say that, or let's just say not even that. Let's just say throughout an entire workout you can do 300 push-ups in X amount of sets. It doesn't matter how many amount of sets. Let's just say you did 300 push-ups. And you say, well, I need to do half as many push-ups. Let's just say we're going with your method, your kind of way of thinking with that. I guarantee you that you're going to be training to failure, and you're going to be training, doing a lot of volume if you try to do 150 pull-ups, because that's a lot of pull-ups. So what I'm trying to say is don't base how many pull-ups you should do off of how many push-ups you can do. They shouldn't even be thought of like that. So I would just recommend, in regards to push-ups and pull-ups, just doing the same amount of sets as push-ups and pull-ups, and then going to the same RPEs per set, depending on where you're at in your program. And by RPEs, that's rating of perceived exertion, so how close you get to failure. So, and also, you have to think about that push-ups. You most likely can do a lot more push-ups than you can a pull-up. So pull-ups are automatically going to be a higher percentage of your 1 rep max than push-ups are, because push-ups you're not lifting as much weight. So, for example, and then also too, if you're looking for muscle size, exercises that are taken to higher reps generally have to be taken closer to failure for you to see the same results in hypertrophy as exercises that are higher intensity or higher percentage of your 1 rep max. So because pull-ups are just generally harder because you're lifting more of your body weight, you don't have to go as close to failure with pull-ups than you do with push-ups. So maybe train at like a 7 to 9 RPE with push-ups, which means get to about 1 to 3 reps of failure for push-ups if you're good at push-ups, if you can do a lot of them. And for pull-ups, just I would say stop the set when your pull-up starts to slow down, or stop the set about 3 to 5 reps close to failure. That's what I would recommend. Again, and then once you have that down, just do the same amount of push-ups as you can, or just do the same amount of sets of push-ups as you can pull-ups. Don't really try to equate the reps. So stick to the proper RPEs. Again, stick to about 3 to 5. Stop the set about 3 to 5 reps from failure on pull-ups, and push-ups stop the set about 1 to 3 reps to failure. So you're going to get a little bit closer to failure on push-ups. And once you do that, just do the same amount of sets. That's it. Even if you look at the ending reps and you don't do as many pull-ups as you do push-ups, that's fine. Again, I wouldn't count pull-ups to push-ups like that. So in regards to those two exercises, that's the ratio I would recommend. So just the same amount of sets, and what I just said for getting close to failure on those exercises. But kind of going a little bit more in depth on your question, you says, what is the ideal ratio of pull-ups to push-ups? This you have to remember that push-ups are a horizontal pushing exercise. You are working on a horizontal adduction of the arm when you're doing push-ups. Again, I break it down to horizontal push and pull. So it would be like a horizontal push would be like a bench press or a push-up. A horizontal pull would be like a bent over row or a high cable row or something. Or like an inverted row, like a bodyweight row. I wouldn't recommend thinking of the ratio of push-ups to pull-ups, because pull-ups are a vertical pull. I usually match like vertical pulls with vertical pushes. So when you're doing push-ups, it's kind of a little bit odd to sit there and think of the ratio of push-ups to pull-ups. If you want like good posture and you want to make sure that you generally have healthy shoulders and you want to think about muscle balance, I would think of like how many sets of push-ups are you doing in comparison to rowing movements, maybe not necessarily to pull-ups, because pull-ups are going to target more specifically, yes, every back exercise is going to hit every area of the back to some degree. A pull-up hits every area of the back. It doesn't matter what area of the back it is, but it's going to hit, there's a main portions of the back that it's going to hit. So for example, a pull-up is going to generally hit the lats and the biceps more than it's going to hit the rhomboids or the traps. So what I would recommend is for every set, stop comparing the ratio of pull-ups to push-ups. What I would recommend is start comparing the ratio of push-ups to rowing exercises you do. So how many sets of a bent over row? How many sets of an inverted row? If you don't know what an inverted row is, a good one to compare it to. That's a really good exercise. So for example, an inverted row is go to like a Smith machine or some type of like a power rack with a barbell in it and hang upside down. So you're going to be facing the ceiling or facing up and grab the bar that way. So grab the barbell that way. Think of a Smith machine and you go under the bar, you're facing up like in a plank format. That's kind of like the reverse of a push-up. Instead of facing the ground in a plank format, you're facing the ceiling and you're hanging from the bar. You could type in an inverted row on Google or look it up on YouTube. But that would be a lot better comparison. Do the same amount of sets of a push-up as you do an inverted row. I'm not saying don't do pull-ups, do pull-ups all as well, but again, that'd be a little bit better of a comparison because now you're comparing a horizontal push with a horizontal pull. That's how I like coupling it. Again, that kind of makes sure that you're working the direct opposite muscle group. The lats and the biceps aren't exactly the direct opposite of like what the muscle groups you're working in a pull-up. Again, that would be more of a row type movement. So that's a better way to look at it. So just equate sets of push-ups to horizontal pulling movements, not vertical pulling movements, and just make sure you're hitting both the same with good quality of reps and things like that. Don't equate repetitions. Don't try to do half as many. Just get the same amount of sets as you can in that. So again, that was a really good question. I couldn't get to it last time, so I got to it this time. All right. The next question comes from, sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, it's Shale. And then he asked, exercise schedule while fat loss. What pointers should be kept in mind while making a workout program during fat loss? And he said in one of my posts, I used the phrase that exercises have very less effect while dieting for fat loss. Please elaborate on that too. I'm not sure exactly when I said that, and I'm not sure I don't think you're quoting me exactly, but I think I know what you're talking about. There are some main things that you need to think about when you're dieting and you're exercising at the same time. So if you're cutting calories and you're trying to focus on fat loss, what I recommend is actually a good chunk of things, a few things, is that if you're starting from a really high body fat percentage, let's just say you're starting with a lot of fat on you, I would say like maybe greater than like 25% or greater than 30% body fat. Like you have a good chunk of fat on you and you're just trying to get rid of it. What I would recommend is during that time, you can focus, you can not guarantee, but you can maybe have in the back of your head know that you're gonna gain muscle too. You have a lot of fat on you, you have a lot of energy to expend. Like you have a lot of energy that your body can use and break down, and use again for energy, like a lot of fat to break down. So you can probably make a safe assumption that if you're not cutting too drastically, that you're still going to gain some muscle. So again, if you're starting with a lot of fat on you and you're not cutting too much and you're dieting intelligently, you're still going to make a gains. You're still going to gain muscle mass. You might even gain some strength too, especially if you're a beginner, which I don't think you are. I don't think you're a beginner, like lifter. So now let's just say you're not that big. Let's just say you have some fat on you, but you're trying to get leaner. You have some fat in you, but you're trying to get leaner. And you don't have a bunch of fat on you. This is where it gets a little bit more technical and a little bit more specific. What I recommend you do in this scenario, which I think is where you're at, is if you don't have a ton of fat on you, you just have some and you're trying to get rid of it and you're trying to get leaner, is that your volume should not be crazy high. Your volume should not be crazy high, and you should not expect to get stronger. Again, if you're cutting calories and you're already pretty lean, your body doesn't have a lot of like kind of energy on itself to work with. Again, someone who's really overweight, they have a lot of energy to work with at that point. They have a lot of fat that they can get rid of that their body can use as an energy source. The leaner and leaner you get, I guess a good analogy is the leaner you get, the thinner of a tightrope you're walking on, that your body's walking on with the energy that it can kind of work with. So if you're not too big, like I said, and your goal is to lose weight, I wouldn't focus on adding a shit ton of volume or adding a ton of volume during that period that you're cutting. Basically, the period that you're trying to lose weight, if you're someone who's not too big, should be the period of your program with the lowest amount of volume. And it should also be the period of your program where you're not focused on to make your greatest strength gains. So to be more specific, if you're not a really big person and you're trying to lose weight, the current part of your program should be not the highest volume part of your program. It should be the lowest volume part of your program. And then it should also be at not very high intensities, percentages of 1 rep max, not at high intensities, and then not at high intensities of effort. So for example, your RPE should be, I probably wouldn't go higher than an 8 RPE during this time of cutting. So basically, don't get within 2 reps of failure. So stick to 3 reps and fail. Like stop your sets before you get to 3 reps within failure. Stop before that. Don't train too heavy, not ridiculously heavy. I wouldn't be going like above 90% of 1 rep max or anything like that. And then also, they should be the volume should be the lowest during this part of your program. I hope I'm not making confusing you too much. I'll go over each reason why you should be doing that. The reason why is because that if you're someone who's not too big and you're trying to lose weight, you don't want fatigue to be too high, because when people need to think of food when you're eating as a means of a way to handle fatigue. It's just a bunch of micronutrients and macronutrients as your body's taking in. When fatigue gets high, if you're eating a lot of food, your body has resources to deal with fatigue a little bit better. So when you are training at high intensities of percentage of 1 rep max and high intensities of effort, like getting closer to failure, fatigue is now increasing. You have a greater fatigue. When you're training at extremely high volumes, again, you have more to recover from. Fatigue is higher. You're going to have things like higher delayed onset muscle soreness, things like that. Basically, fatigue in general is going to be higher when you have really high volume, high RPEs, and basically high percentages of 1 rep maxes. If you're doing all those things or any one of those things, fatigue is going to be really high. And because you're cutting, you're eating less calories than you're normally used to, and you're not a very, very, very big person to begin with. Basically, your body has no way to really kind of manage that fatigue, and what's going to start happening is you're going to start getting more catabolic hormones. You're going to producing more catabolic hormones. Your body's going to start breaking down muscle tissue a little bit more, because think about it. You're giving your body less nutrients to manage fatigue, but you're also increasing fatigue if you're training really heavy, or you're training to failure, or you're having a ton of volume. So basically, if you're a very big person, I think that because you have a lot of fat to get rid of, and you had a lot of extra calories just on your body in general, a lot of energy to work with, I think that your body can utilize that in lots of ways. And if you're cutting intelligently, like you're not cutting a lot, it's not going to be that big of a detriment to you. So you're not going to be your body, again, has a lot of energy to work with. For leaner individuals, it's just they don't have as much fat to work with. So if you're like under 20% body fat, and I'm not saying 20% body fat's super lean. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that when you're under 20% body fat, that's where I'd start to think like, okay, well, you need to not train as like, basically I would take, to sum everything up, because I know I kind of seems like I'm going all over the places. You need to take, for someone, like I would say, I'm just, again, ballparking it, but for someone under 20% body fat, I would start taking these periods of training as more of a maintenance. You're just trying to maintain your strength, and you're trying to maintain your muscle mass while losing weight. Don't be training ridiculously heavy. Don't be training to failure. Don't even train within 3 reps to failure. And then don't train at really high volume, because you're not trying to maximize fatigue here. You're just trying to maintain your strength. You're trying to maintain your muscle mass. Your goal is to lose weight. Again, I wouldn't even expect any increases in strength if you're cutting, and again, cutting intelligently. You might even lose just a crumb of strength depending on where you're at in your training cycle, depending on your training age, things like that, depending on how lean you are right now. But that's okay. That's because that's not your goal right now. So that's what I'd recommend, is that when you're training, your goal should not be, if you're in a part of your training where you're focusing really hard on trying to get strong and you're cutting, you're doing 2 opposite goals. You're doing 2 opposite goals that aren't related, and I guarantee they're both going to suffer. Or one of them is going to suffer pretty bad. If you're trying to get stronger and you're lean and you're cutting, you're probably going to end up disappointed, because again, your body is probably producing more catabolic hormones than normal. When you just have, you're not dealing with fatigue as well, and then you're not gaining as much muscle. All these things are going to play a factor. So again, and if let's just say your goal is not strength, but you're trying to gain muscle, it's just so much easier to gain muscle when you have a caloric maintenance or caloric surplus. And I'm not saying you can't gain muscle on a caloric deficit. You can, but the leaner you are, the harder it is. You're walking that tightrope. And let's just say you're a really, 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 really lean individual. Let's just say you're like 12, 13% body fat. You may or may not be shale, but if you get to that point, it's going to be that you're walking such a thin tightrope. You cut a little bit too hard, you're going to lose a little bit of muscle mass. So it's like, again, I'm not saying you can't gain muscle while you're in a deficit, but the leaner you are, the harder it is, and the thinner the tightrope you're walking. So again, to sum it all up, I just recommend maintaining your strength, which means to maintain your strength, it's not that hard. Just don't go crazy heavyweight. Don't train too close to failure. And then your volume should not be that high either. So if you have periods of your training where you have higher volume or lower volume, your lower volume period of training would be that would be the time that I'd recommend cutting. And then the other periods, either maintenance or a caloric surplus. Personally, what I do is I have a volume block where I increase volume by 1 set per muscle group a week for 6 weeks. So each week, every muscle group. So basically, I have a horizontal push, a horizontal pull, a vertical push, a vertical pull, and then I have all legs. So in each muscle group, I increase legs. I kind of break up to more of like a squat type pattern and a deadlift type pattern. So each week I add a set to horizontal push, horizontal pull each, a set to vertical push, vertical pull, and a set to more of a squat like pattern. That'd be like leg press or a goblet squat, and then a set to more of like a deadlifty, more posterior chain leg work. So like I'll add a set to like a glute bridge or a deadlift or something. So, and I add 1 set each week. Now, the first 3 weeks of my volume block, or all my volume block, my RPEs and my intensities aren't that high. So, but of the volume block, because my intensities and RPEs aren't that high, and I'm increasing each week by week, the first 3 weeks are the weeks where I have the lowest volume of my entire cycle and the lowest intensities and the lowest RPEs. So those are the weeks that I cut. I also do an intro week to my volume block, which is half volume, to kind of minimize delayed onset muscle soreness, that soreness you get from starting a new program. So basically, the first 4 weeks of my training are the lowest volume that they're going to be throughout my entire program, and the lowest intensities and lowest RPEs. So intensity of effort and intensity of 1 rep max. That's the period that I cut. The last 3 weeks of my volume block, it's still the same intensities of 1 rep max and of RPE, but the volume is now the highest it is in the entire program. Which again, that's where I go to caloric maintenance. Like, because there's, again, that's not the time you want to be cutting. And then the last 4 weeks of my program, of my main training, is, I would say, around medium to low volume. Actually, it starts to taper into low volume. It's not like I immediately jump to low volume, but the intensities of effort and intensities of 1 rep max they are the highest that they are. So during that time is where I have a caloric surplus. So I go from a caloric deficit, caloric maintenance, then to a caloric surplus. Now, during the caloric surplus, I might gain a little bit of weight, but because it's only 4 weeks long, that little bit of weight isn't that bad. But at the same time, I'm not trying to cut during this period. My goal is to increase strength. So again, it all comes down to not trying to do too many goals at one time. And then even if I do gain a little bit of weight after I do my taper and my testing period, boom, I'm right back to my intro week and then my low volume and all my cutting again. So then I'm going to lose that weight off. And then I'm not focused on directly getting stronger during that period again. So I hope that makes sense. If you have any more questions, you can send me a message. I try not to be all over the place. Sometimes I can kind of do that. Okay, now we're on to our last question. And this is from Thomas. I rechecked my last podcast, but I hopefully I didn't miss it, but I don't think I answered his question. I think he asked this question after my podcast was done. I didn't message him about this, but I'll put it in this podcast for anyone else who might have the same issue. But he asked that he can't seem to gain weight at all, and then he says he eats and in his words an absolute fuck ton of food every day, and pretty much just spends his days sitting around mostly. He says he has 2 really active days where he does MMA training and work. His work's pretty active. So basically 2 active days and then mostly sedentary, but he can't gain weight. I think I asked him this, and I'm pretty sure I remember his answer. I asked him if he counts his calories, and he said no. Okay, now from my experience and from what I've read and what I've seen is that most people who say they eat a lot, yes, they do eat a lot. I'm not going to lie. But you're not tracking calories is the main thing. You have to track calories, whether that be with an app, whether you write it down, you need to track calories, because you may be eating foods that are higher satiety, which means they make you feel full, they look like a lot on a plate, but when you count the calories, it's only like a 500 to 700 calorie meal. And if you're eating 500 to 700 calorie meals for 4 meals a day, and that ends up being around 2,400 calories, and you're just, a little bit genetically gifted, and you are expending 2,600 calories a day or 2,500 calories a day or something, or you might be around 2,400, that would just put you at maintenance, And people don't get what I'm saying, but for example, if I give you a kilogram of watermelon, which is 2.2 pounds of watermelon, that's a lot of watermelon, but that's only 300 calories. That's only 300. But if I gave you 2.2 pounds of watermelon, 2 bananas, and then some granola. Let's just say some granola, 200 calories of granola. That right there, the granola is low satiety, but because the fruit is high satiety, especially the watermelon and the bananas, but the watermelon mostly, you're going to feel like you either want to puke or you're going to feel like you're extremely full, because trust me, a kilogram of watermelon is no joke. That's a lot. It's not a lot of calories, but it feels like you're going to explode when you're done eating that. But now let's compare that to like a candy bar or something, or let's just say you only ate granola. Let's just say that was 700 calories I just said right there. But let's just say you took that 700 calories, took out the watermelon, took out the banana, but you only ate granola. That 700 calories granola is not going to fill you up like it would as if you ate, compared to the little bit of granola, the watermelon and the bananas. So what I'm trying to say is that if you're not tracking calories, then you might be eating higher satiety foods, which again fill you up faster, make it seem like you're eating a lot, but there are not a lot of calories per how full you get. So one is to track calories. You need to track calories. You need to see consistently how much you're getting. And once you track it for like a couple weeks up to a month, you'll see how many calories you're getting in a day. Now, again, what you need to do is once you track calories, you need to increase calories and then increase calories by a certain amount. Let's just say you track and you find out you're not eating as much as you did. Let's just say you find out you're eating 2,600 calories and you're not gaining weight. Okay, you're like, okay, so what you need to do is you need to increase that number. Track it again, track your calories again, and jump up to like, let's just say 3,000. Increase it about 300 to 500 calories. And then once you increase it, track your weight, because now you're making an increase. Now you're changing something. And obviously with your previous 2,600 calories, you weren't gaining weight. So if you're making this caloric increase, don't jump too much. Don't just jump, increase like 300 to 500 calories. Then track your weight. I would weigh yourself every morning before you eat, after you use the restroom, and then completely unclothed, weigh yourself. Do that every single morning for a couple weeks. And then over that like a couple weeks, or actually compare each week to each week. So let's just say you weigh yourself every morning the first week after your new caloric increase. Stay with that same caloric increase and then weigh yourself the second week every single morning. Take the average of each week. So Monday through Sunday of the first week with your new 3,000 calories or whatever your increase was. Take the Monday through Sunday of the second week with your new 3,000 calories and see the average of that. See if you increase a weight a little bit. Don't compare day to day, because when you compare day-to-day weights, they can fluctuate depending on what you drank the night before or what you ate the day before. Just compare weekly averages. So your Monday through Sunday, add them all together and then divide it by 7. And then that's week 1. Then of your second week, do the same thing. Add all your weights together, then divide it by 7. And see with that new caloric increase, if you're gaining weight. If you're not gaining weight, then increase it a little bit more. You might need to go to add another 300 to 500 calories. So let's just say you started at 2,600, you went to 3,000. Now just jump up to 3,500. Do the same thing 1 week on this new caloric intake from Monday to Sunday. Weigh yourself in the morning, get the average of that entire week of week 1 or 2, and compare those weeks. Now, I guarantee you eventually you're going to have a point where you're going to start gaining weight. You will. Now, here's some problems that you might run into this. You might say, well, one, I can't eat that many calories. I'm increasing, like you say, but I'm finding it hard because I get too full. Because let's just say I was right and you were eating some high satiety foods. Start eating low satiety foods. Low satiety foods are foods that don't look like a lot. They don't make you feel full, but they're just a lot of calories. And an easy way to increase the amount of calories you can take in is just by adding some extra healthy fats. Not bad fats, not a lot of butter and tons of oils, just healthy fats like nuts, seeds, and then avocados, things like that. I guarantee you if you add some nuts and seeds, avocados in your diet, you're automatically going to increase dramatically. Your caloric intake is going to increase dramatically. So just type on Google or look up low satiety foods and add some of those foods into your diet. Your caloric intake is going to skyrocket. So try doing that. And then once you do that, it's going to help you be able to get in more calories. So again, eventually you're going to keep increasing until you find a point where you're like, okay, now I'm starting to see some weight. But these things have to be tracked. You can't not track them and say, well, I don't know why I'm losing weight, because you honestly don't know what's going on. You don't know how much you're taking in. You don't know how much you're expending. And another note is that I recommend, obviously, that these are healthy foods that you're eating. Don't be eating shit, candy, fast food. I wouldn't do that. I would be eating healthy foods and making small increases. Again, so don't jump from 2,600 calories to 3,500 calories, because what if 3,000 calories starts helping you gain weight? And I guess another last tip to give is just to be patient. If you're a hard gainer, again, I still think that the problem might be that you're not counting calories, but I still think that obviously you might be a hard gainer. So if you're a hard gainer, it's just to be patient. Obviously, if eating whatever you see in anything in your sight, if you're just eating everything in your sight, then if that doesn't work, then obviously your body, you're just a hard gainer. So if you're a hard gainer, don't rush it. Don't sit there and try to shove 5,000, 10,000 to 10,000 calories down a day because you want to hurry up and gain weight. You want to gain weight, but you want it to be of good weight. And that's another thing I wanted to touch on, is that you said that you only do MMA once a week and then you do your active once a week. That might be another problem for why you're not gaining weight. Because if you're gaining weight slowly anyways, you might as well gain slow good weight. And what is that? Muscle. So I would recommend you start working out, Thomas. So again, I'd recommend you start working out, track your weight, track your calories. Once you make a caloric adjustment, track it over the next couple weeks. Take the averages of the weeks and compare them. If let's just hypothetically say your average of the first week was, I have no idea how much you weigh, but let's just say it's 200 pounds. I don't think you weigh that much, but you take the average and you're like, okay, I'm 200 pounds after the first week. I jumped up to 3,000 calories our first week. No change in body weight. Let's just say you originally weighed 2,000 calories too. Let's just say you weighed, 200 pounds the first week. Before you started the first week. And after the first week of the adjustment, you weighed 200 pounds. The next week, still keep the same calories. Again, you want to see if, it might take you a little bit longer. If there's no adjustment, then you still weigh 200 pounds. After the caloric increase, adjust again. So again, that's when you make the second adjustment. Go to 3,500 calories. Let's just say after the first week, you now weigh, 200.9. You're like, okay, cool, I almost gained a pound this week. Just stick with that and see how that goes. But you have to remember, if you do take my advice and you start working out a little bit more, because it doesn't seem like you're working out that much, that's also going to increase the calories that you're going to have to take in, because again, working out, you're now expelling a little bit more calories than you were when you were more sedentary. So again, use these tips. I hope it can help you increase your weight mass. Just remember, you have to be very specific and very kind of nitpicky about everything. You have to track your calories for a little bit, see how much you're eating, track your own weight, and see how much you're and see how your body reacts to that new adjustment. Oh, and sorry, there's another thing I didn't touch up on with your question, is that you may say, well, how do I know where to start? How do I know how many calories I'm expending? I would just, again, calorie calculators and estimators are generally, they're never going to be specifically accurate. So if you want a starting point from where to start, what I would recommend is going to any calorie calculator online that asks you a lot of questions. Just type in calorie calculator, or if anything, I'll give you a quick one. Go to tdee.net. So that's tdee.net, total daily energy expenditure. And you could just type that in on Google. It should pop up, enter your information there, and then it's going to spit you out a number. And I'm not sure if this is the website that asks you if you want to, if your goal is to gain or cut. But if it says you want to gain weight, click the thing that says gain weight. If it doesn't ask you those questions, because I can't remember if it does or not, then just add 500 calories to that. So if you go there and the number just gives you what you're expending in a day, and it's not giving you a number for gaining or cutting, then just, if it's not, then add 500 calories. Now, if it's giving you a number for gaining, it's already adding calories onto that. So then just do that. But again, if it's just giving you your regular daily energy expenditure, then just add 500 on that and start from there. That'll be your first increase. But if that's too confusing, honestly, I'd recommend starting with 2,500 calories, counting 2,500 calories, making sure you're getting in 2,500 calories every day, and then weigh yourself over a week. Now, if you start counting 2,500 calories and you're like, well, this is less than I normally eat, I counted my calories and I was eating more than that, then start higher than that. And I guess an even easier way is just don't even try to count calories like from a calorie calculator or anything. Just eat your regular diet and count how many calories you're eating in your regular diet. You said you eat a shit ton right now, so what I would do is just eat regular, and everything that you normally eat, just write down the calories. If you come up with a number like 3,200, obviously you need to jump 300 to 500 above that and go to 3,600. All right, man, I hope those tips helped you. Hopefully you have success in gaining weight. Thank you all for the questions for this podcast. I appreciate it. Wasn't too many questions, but they were some pretty good, thorough questions, and hopefully your guys' questions and my answers help other people who have these problems. Keep checking back at jpfitnesspro.com. Again, I'm still working on those powerlifting programs and hypertrophy programs up from my website. I'm also going to have options for online coaching, if that's more of your thing, or customized training programs if you want a specific program tailored to you. Maybe you have a problem, an injury that you need to work around or something like that. But again, that's jpfitnesspro.com. But until next time, I'll see you guys later.